What's up, guys? Welcome back to the Pure Core podcast featuring my guest, Jason Levasseur of Tales from the Pit and Acoustified Media. How we doing, brother?
Good. Thank you very much for having me. This is pretty cool.
Hell yeah. Thank you for being on. It's cool. I love having other podcast hosts in my podcast because when I have some guests on, I never know how the conversation is going to go. I never know if I'm going to have to kind of just pull it out of them a little bit but yeah, having somebody who I know can talk, I love it.
Yeah, absolutely. And as we were just starting, we can definitely talk technology in our headaches around that as well too.
Definitely, 100%. 100%. So I wanted to talk about the thing that I'm most excited to learn about is you do some awesome photography so for some amazing bands. I mean, just to name a couple, I mean, Shinedown, Falling in Reverse. I know I'm leaving out a bunch, but those are the ones that really caught my eye recently.
Yeah, thank you. I have been pretty blessed with my ability to be a part of that, whole concert field, and this year is probably one of the biggest years so far, and so many great bands, and they've been so cool to work with and stuff like that. So it's a lot of fun. I can't complain at all.
Hell yeah, definitely. Now, do you think that it being so busy is just because it's the year kind of back from COVID? Like it's kind of the first year where everything kind of opened up.
Yeah, I think there was a lot of stuff happening, during COVID. A lot of bands were getting ready to release albums or put out albums right as it happened, and they couldn't tour. So there's, a really negative impact to their, financials or their, fan base being in an interactive, world when you're playing live and you can't do it for a year or 2 years. That definitely slows everything down. So I think, yeah, for us, I work for Live Nation and specifically a few venues. Our goal originally back in 2020 was to be a record year for the number of shows, and that obviously didn't happen.
Mhm.
And then 2021 was kind of all right. Let's see how things go. And then 2022 was like so many bands on the road that I mean, literally major bands, major tours, all happening at the same time because everyone was just so hungry. So yeah, I think that's the overall goal is like, we've been sitting at home for 2 years. We have all this new music. We need to be out there and just having a good time and getting back to what it's all about, and that's that live music.
Definitely. See, it's weird for me because I don't know what the event industry was before the pandemic. I started after doing stagehand runner things and it was kind of cool to hear stories about how everything was before, how everything was kind of like I don't want to say less strict, but it's wild to just hear how people were just drinking and hanging out and like you can't really do that now. Everybody wears a mask and everybody's super safe and it's wild.
The last 2 years, 21 and 22, have been very different from pre-COVID in regards to for 2021 as a photographer. It was because I am a house photographer for a lot of venues or for a few venues. I was sort of built into being able to shoot the bands. But if you were a publish shooting for a publication or anything like that, or for whatever in 21, a lot of the artists weren't allowing any outside sources whatsoever. I was fortunate enough to work with a couple bands directly, and it was everything was a very locked down bubble. Management was very clear about no one front stage goes backstage and vice versa during 2021.
Hmm.
And then this year that sort of changed and loosened up quite a bit. And it's still there's certain acts that are still very strict in regards to how they have contact with people that are not part of their bubble. But for most part, most of the bands are like, let's just get out there and let's just have a good time.
Definitely, I totally agree. I mean, one band that we have in common that I think holds that kind of standard of let's just have a good time and keep a positive attitude is Shinedown. I mean, those guys are like absolutely just it's mind blowing to know a band of that stature is that humble. You know?
Yeah, those guys, I mean, during COVID, that was the only show I was able to photograph in 2022 with Smith and Myers. 'Cause they did the drive-in tour which basically was an outdoor venues that, you had cars that you pulled up like kind of like a drive-in theater,
Hmm.
and to the right of your car was your designated space. And if you went outside your designated space, you have to have your mask on, all that stuff. So during 2020, that was the only show I got to photograph, and I got, an all access photograph because, or photography, because, you and I are friends with John and several members of the team.
Hmm.
And I've, obviously talked with Barry and John and Sanjay on our podcast as well. So that was really, really cool to sort of see that play out and see how that goes. And then, I shot them again in 2021, and then I shot them twice this year. And it's every year, those dudes know how to, they know, John knows his stuff when it comes to security.
Oh
And,
yeah,
John's just a great guy, period. But when it comes to his work, he knows his stuff. He is the man. But the band themselves and the team they have, in part of their crew is just top of the line. This year, their tour was just a blow your mind show tour. So if anyone watching this has not seen this year's tour for the new album, it is like amazing. It's beautiful. It's the lighting set up, the pyro, everything is just insane. We can get more into that later on if you want, but it is a freaking triple A show if you want a good concert.
definitely 100%. Yeah, I mean, we could talk about it now. I was there for the Mohegan Sun show, and I have a video. Oh my God, I gotta show you. It's hilarious. I'm right next to where the pyro is, and I'm watching the purple doors open, and they went into the first song, and I think it was the Saints of Innuendo,
Yep.
and I was sitting there and I was like, yeah, and then all of a sudden the pyro went off in front of me because I wasn't expecting it. I was like, whoa, fuck, and my phone went up.
Yep.
It scared the living shit out of me. It was so funny though, but but yeah, it was.
I,
Oh,
I was going to say the same thing. I was shooting for the venue about a month ago for that show,
mhm.
and we needed some video clips. So I was back with Barry in the drum area, just like you. And that pyro's going off, and I'm looking around at all the people around me, and I could see everyone like this. I'm like, oh boy, here it comes. So I literally just held my camera. I mean, I got my rig right here, and I literally just held my camera as as tight as possible, and I just hunkered in there and just held it. And the blast was so loud and so strong that it blew me back, and then debris started following all over my camera and stuff like that. It was insane.
Y-
It freaking amazing, but freaking loud. Holy cow, was it loud?
Oh yeah, that was really loud. That was. I have to thank John for that because that was the first experience that I've ever had backstage of a show and I wasn't working. It
Yeah.
was incredible. It was really really cool. I felt like on edge. I was like I need to grab a case. I need to move a case. Like I felt like I was working, but it was like everybody was so nice. I mean, the only person who I really talked to that night was Zach, and Zach came right up to me. He remembered me from when I worked for them before, and yeah, I mean, super awesome guys.
Yeah, Zach's really great. I mean, every show, it's always him walking by, shaking hands with all the backstage crew and stuff like that, checking out. I mean, we know Zach, like I said, from previous shows and stuff like that, and the Smith and Myers show and stuff like that. And the night before they played our venue, they did a little fishing. The day before, they did a little bit of fishing with some, fellow cohorts of our podcast. So they were all out fishing the day before and having a good time, just chilling out and stuff like that. So super, super, super nice guys. I mean, the nicest guys you'll ever meet in rock.
Oh, seriously, 100%. Correct me if I'm wrong, but during the pandemic, didn't they give like $10,000 to the band Spirit Box?
I don't know the answer to that. They did something, they did a couple things. They're really, really generous when it comes to their friends and their opening acts and stuff like that. I know back in 2019, I think it was, one of the opening bands didn't even have a banner. So they bought a banner for the band to have a big backdrop and stuff like that.
Wow.
And they've done a lot of really cool stuff for their friends and the bands. I mean, they're very generous with their time. I don't know specifically about Spirit Box. It does sort of ring a bell, but I don't know.
I
But
could be wrong.
they also had they had the Atlas Falls song, which all proceeds went to relief for something. I forgot what it was. I think it was related to COVID or something like that, and they raised a ton of money for that as well.
Yeah, I mean, just great all around people. But
Yep.
I wanted to get into kind of the next band that I was talking about too. and I talked to my last few guests about this, but like, do you know the controversy that's going on with Ronnie and the laptop? And I mean,
Yep.
that is the dumbest thing for people to get mad over.
Yep.
Like, it's so crazy to me. It's just so crazy because I completely see where he's coming from. I completely like it. There's so many bands that come through when I work with them that have a laptop with backtracks, and if you don't have those backtracks, it's not going to sound as full of a show, you know?
I would say that that's definitely an older mentality versus a newer mentality, and that plays out with Sebastian Bach and Ronnie, both going, putting their comments out there. Honestly, 99%, I won't say 99, 95%, somewhere in that high range, are using some form of back tracks or some sort of click thing. And not just for music, they're using it for the whole synchronization of their lights, their whatever programming they got going on. All that is tied to a laptop. Now, I actually play in a band where we use click tracks as well for certain things because we don't have a keyboard player, or there's like, sort of bass drops and stuff like that going on, that we don't have a physical person that actually does that instrument. So, we all play our instruments, we all live sing our parts, and then we do have click tracks that sort of fill in additional components that can't be done live because we just don't have 30 people in the band or whatever, or something like that. And it's so it's such a dumb question. It's a dumb argument, as you said, because there's just that no one really understands. If if I was Ronnie and I was that band and we lost our click tracks or whatever it is that we were pre-set up for our shows, it would be almost impossible for me to do a show at the last minute without having some sort of pre-arranged practice to kind of figure out a full hour to 2 hour set, whatever it is. Um, Stuff like that you usually try. I mean, the thing we used to do is we would play everything with the click track and everything without, just in case something breaks, because something always breaks. But
Mm-hmm.
realistically, as a last minute thing, it's impossible, especially if your lights, everything, your pyro, whatever you have, if everything is keyed to this click and you don't have the click, you have no lights, you have no show, you have no backing tracks, you have no, you have no fill-ins for all these things you know that are part of a song that a fan knows. If you take the song Zombified, there's specific, you know, zombified. There's specific phrasing that goes on that's, not Ronnie, or maybe it's not Ronnie in a normal voice or something like that. There's specific distortion and effects that are going on in his voice or whatever the voice is for all these different things. And as a fan, you want that experience. You know that song from that album or from that single. You want to hear it that way. Now, if you go to acoustic show, you're expecting maybe something different. But if it's a major tour for that band, you're expecting them to deliver the best version of that song. And they're all doing their stuff live. No one's faking it. No one's lip syncing. They're doing their stuff live.
Oh
It's
yeah,
just additional components to it. So
definitely.
yeah, it's an asinine. That whole argument is so stupid, but I get it. Some people are so stuck on, if it's not a real guitar playing through an amp, and it's that happened with all the DJ scratching and stuff like that back in the 80s and 90s and stuff like that. But whatever. It's no big deal. Everyone does it. There are bands that play without click, but most of the bands you hear live are playing with a click.
Mm-hmm. That's like I forget the band's name, but I just had a guess on who's talking about it. Did you see the video of the drummer who lost his in ear, like he lost the sound, and his
Yeah.
drum tech, yeah, hit his leg.
Yeah.
That was incredible.
Yeah.
That takes skill. That takes absolute skill.
And creativity, man. That's like, all right, we just gotta make the best we got. We can do this. I know we can do this. Just you just tap my leg and I'll play the drums to it.
Definitely. It was so crazy, man. But yeah, I was just wondering, we talked about some of the highlights of this year. I was wondering if there was any other highlights bands that you've photographed that you want to talk about.
So I get to photograph not just rock. I mean, the hard rock is my sort of passion. I like, that's my style. I like that
Hmm.
stuff. But I have to photograph whatever comes through, and it's going to be everything and anything in between, from country to sometimes comedy, sometimes easy listening, whatever, Americana, whatever it is. I mean, for me, the Papa Roach, Falling Reverse, Bad Wolves, Hollywood Undead. That show was just crazy, crazy, and that was the one I was really looking forward to. You know, I've had Doc on my Doc from Bad Wolves. I've had him on my podcast and stuff like that. Jacoby is one of the best live singers in both his singing and his presentation
Hmm.
there is in rock. I mean, there is almost nobody better than Jacoby at his stage, at his age, at their popularity. You know, he's at the very, very top of that tier when it comes to the delivery of a live front man or front singer, whatever. I mean, Jacoby's the man when it comes to that. So that was my most excited show to see, and you know, it didn't disappoint at all. All bands sounded phenomenal. They were awesome. That was such an awesome show. For me, there are there's some bands that I sign on at the beginning of the year for stuff that looks interesting. I may
Hmm.
have no clue about these artists. I have no clue about what they look like. What they play, what they sound like, what stage looks like, all that stuff. So I usually do a quick Google search for what their last show was and stuff like that, and I'll just kind of say, all right, that one might look cool. There's been bands like I, I signed up to do the band called Odessa, and I just posted some photos recently on them,
Hmm.
and that's sort of I guess an EDM or what I don't know what you would call it. The sort of that dance rave sort of style, but they have a lot of visual lights going on with fire and lasers and all these, you know, pyro things going off and stuff like that. And I was so excited to shoot that one because the video I saw of them was so cool. I was like, oh, this is going to be great. And to be honest with you, they said, you can shoot the show, but you can only shoot these songs. And I was like, okay, I didn't know the difference between one song or another because I didn't know them. So the songs they allowed me to shoot were so boring. And I was like
Huh.
so disappointed. I was like, come on. There's like the song right before I could shoot had all this fire going off and these pyros and these lasers and all this cool stuff going off. And then the song I got to shoot was just them with a female singer who was they sounded fantastic. It was a great song. Everything was cool, but none of that stuff was going off that I wanted to capture. And I was like, oh man, this is so disappointing. But right at the last song, right as I was getting into the last song, I was like, man, I hope they give us something. And they did. Right at that last song, they gave us this really cool pyro blast with the drummers come out with these LED drum sets. And I was like, oh my God, this is amazing. So that was one of my most memorable, but it literally was like maybe 20 seconds or 30 seconds of the whole show that I got to shoot that I was like, thank God I got that piece and I got some amazing shots. But yeah, there's a lot of cool stuff, a lot of fun stuff. I shoot a lot of country stuff. Country stuff for me is a whole different ball game, and that could be very hit or miss. Everyone loves Chris Stapleton, but
Hmm.
for me as a photographer, that is one of the most boring shows to shoot. His music's great live. He's such a talented dude, but live, he just stands there with an acoustic guitar and does not move. So after 10 seconds of shooting that, I'm like, all right, I guess I'm done for the night. There's nothing else to shoot. So it's a wide variety of stuff, and you just never know until you're in the show and figure out what you're allowed to do.
Definitely. It's so wild to like to just think about kind of how many, I'm sorry to get off topic just a little bit here, but how many friends we actually have in common, because the guest who I'm talking about, that we were talking about the Ronnie controversy, is
Yep.
Kyle from Bad Wolves.
Yeah, awesome.
So
Yeah.
yeah, I just had him on. He's gonna be 2 episodes before you.
Oh,
Actually,
cool.
technically, I can say this now because this will be up by the time everything's announced. He's the first guest of Pure Core Podcast.
Nice. Yeah,
So
yeah, and they were so good live. I mean, they're so awesome. I got to hang out with those guys off after for a few moments. Really, I mean, those guys are just they know what they're doing. They're
mhm.
really nice guys. Doc, has his podcast, which is I feel Doc's one of the sharpest guys when it comes to the reality of this industry and stuff like that. Doc knows what he's talking about. He's been through it all.
Mhm.
The funny thing about Doc is I interviewed him for my podcast back a year or two ago, whatever it was, 2 years ago, whatever it was. And it was literally I'm interviewing him and he just seems off, like he's not really focused and stuff, but he was moving at the time and stuff like that. So I just played it off as that. And we had a great interview. It was a lot of fun. He was, we talked about a lot of cool stuff, but he just seemed a little bit off during the whole interview. And the very next day, it dropped that Tommy left the band. So I was like, oh,
Oh
there must have
man,
been some major stuff happening as I was interviewing him. So it was a really interesting time. But Doc is so cool.
definitely. I mean, talking to Kyle, he told me all about him, and he does sound like an awesome guy, and he loves podcasts. So I'll probably try to nab him for the future.
Also cool too. I mean, I didn't get to really to talk to Kyle very much, but I mean, he's just an awesome dude as well. That whole band, they're all really nice guys.
Definitely, 100%. Yeah. Speaking about kind of topics that are kind of like big in interviewing people, I think the most interesting one that I got to do during season one of Hammerhead podcast was, did you know what was going on between a band called Dropout Kings and a rapper called Lil Xan?
You might have to remind me because I don't think so.
So there was a tour, and I forget what it was called, but it was a trap metal band called Dropout Kings and a rapper called Lil Xan, and Lil Xan was headlining. And for some reason, Lil Xan canceled. He was like, "I'm done. I'm not doing it." And it was like a day before the tour. Like this band had already left in a van to go across the country and already at the venue, and it was like this whole controversy. And I was like, "Well." As a podcast, I was like, I gotta hop on it. So I texted the guy and I was like, "You want to hop on? Like, let's talk about it for a half hour." And it was just wild to me because before, right after we were done, right after we hang up, we say our goodbyes. All of a sudden, TMZ comes up on my Facebook, and it's the guy that I just interviewed 10 minutes before. He's on TMZ live. I'm like, holy shit! it
Good
was
timing, man. Yeah, it rings a bell too. I vaguely remember that.
it was wild, man. It was absolutely insane. I mean, to get back on the topic of Ronnie canceling shows, like that's different. Ronnie gave a reason. This whole thing
Yep.
was like, it was weird, dude. It was crazy to me because they were like talking shit about Dropout King's manager at the time, who, I mean, I went through to get my episode, and the guy was nothing but stand up and amazing. And I was like, why are they saying these lies about this guy? This guy's completely nice and awesome. And it was a huge shit show. But yeah, you kind of reminded me of that. I was like, wow, I remember that like happened. That was so weird.
Funny thing is, I was in a. I have a band called Acoustified, which is a hard rock band,
Hmm.
despite the name. And we were scheduled for a show, a very similar situation, but it was more a promoter related issue, which you
Hmm.
hear quite a lot of. We were scheduled for this big festival called Laconia Fest back 2018, 2017. I forget what it was, several years ago. And we were opening up for POD and Seven Dust.
Mm.
That was going to be. We were super psyched. It was a Saturday. It was going to be sold out. It was a beautiful. It was bike week. It was going to be insane. We were scheduled to open up. We and I guess right before the night before the whole show, it was a week long show. The night before, I guess the promoter like had some major financial issues and just took all the money and ran and never paid anybody.
Oh
So
wow.
that day it got canceled. So I mean, I think those guys all get those bands get paid in advance regardless. But it was just such a bummer. We were so psyched to be opening up for Seven Dust and POD and stuff like that, and it got canceled. And I was like so bummed, and so many people were pissed off because they didn't get paid. Everyone working didn't get paid because the promoter just took off with the money. But that stuff happens every now and then too. Some weird stuff like that where someone just kind of disappears and screws everybody else over in the industry.
Yeah, man. I've had I can't really go over it now because I'm kind of cool with them now. But I had a super bad run in with a promoter during the pandemic that it ended up everywhere. Like
Yeah.
it was like voice messages, and I ended up sending them to a friend, and he posted them. I didn't know he was gonna post them. He ended up posting them because it was that bad, and it was like a huge situation. It was absolutely wild, and that was actually the reason I quit playing music. I still love music. Don't get me wrong. It's why I do this, and I try to give people, I try to give people a little bit of a push and talk to bands that I love. But yeah, I love this way better than playing music, and I'll say that every day.
They're both very similar. I mean, the high you get off of talking to some really cool people about some really cool stuff, and then playing a band. Depending on if you get to play some pretty nice shows or some successful shows, or you kind of get somewhere with your band. There's a lot of similarities between those two. Definitely. What were you playing in the band? Were you a drummer or singer? What were you doing?
I was a drummer, Yeah, that was Outlander, right? Yeah, I was the drummer. And then ended up moving from drums to drums vocals, and then from drums vocals just to being the vocalist. But at the time, yeah, I was the drummer.
Yeah, nice, awesome, dude.
Yeah, man, it was. I mean, it was a good time. I just don't like it, and I know the people who I was in a band with are gonna watch this, but I hate being in a band because it's like being in a relationship, and I already have a girlfriend. I don't need more.
It is a lot of. I mean, that's the most common reason. Obviously, bands have, as we talk about Bad Wolves, that's the most common reason for bands just to fall apart is those personalities.
They
If they
don't
don't
mix.
match, man, it's gonna make a mess.
Yeah, man. That's something wild, definitely about Shinedown that like I never understood until like meeting and talking to Zach and John and everybody. It almost seems like they all have a very similar personality.
Yeah. I think
It's
they have a mutual respect for what they do, who they are. I mean, because they all have. I've heard from artists who complain about band members, but it's all just typical stuff you would complain about your brother or your sister or your wife or whatever it is. It's those typical things where things get on your nerves, but you're all respectful to each other, and you all know that at the end of the day, I mean, this is your family. Second family, first family, depending on what you got going on. So it's a matter of just having that tolerance to be respectful to them and you understand, this is bigger than you.
mhm,
So your issues are not, the most important thing.
definitely 100%. Uh, yeah, to on my podcast I get off topic so much, but a little bit to get off topic. I heard the guys in Seven Dust are like the nicest dudes ever.
Yep.
Th-
So I haven't got a chance to really meet them directly. I mean, I've shot them several times. We've got to hang out with them briefly. I don't really get the chance to talk to them because of COVID and all that stuff.
mhm.
But I mean, I know some of the other people in their crew. I know a lot of bands that tour with them. I'm friends with Dan Murphy, who is the singer for the band All Good Things, and they toured with them. And then same thing with Bella Perron for the band Plush. They all toured together, and they just had the most amazing things to say about Seven Dust. Those are the most kind, gentle, like Shinedown. Those guys just they're not about stepping on people to get up
Mhm.
above the ladder or whatever it is. They're not about I'm the greatest or anything like that. They're really about community and family and spiritual wellness. Your health, your the people you surround yourself is really what's going to be most important for your longevity and stuff like that. So they're really, really, really nice guys with really good hearts and all that sort of perspective.
Definitely. The only negative thing I think I can say about those guys is I think they need to be bigger. They
Yeah,
are so underrated. They are so good.
and their fan base is so freaking hardcore too. I agree with you. I mean, I don't know, I don't know why they're not, but
Yeah,
I agree with you. They should be at that Shinedown level. Triple A. I mean, I think they are, in my opinion, in my view, but not. I just don't. I think they need to have those top 20. Those songs need to be on the top 20. I mean, those songs need to be on the radio, which they are, but they shouldn't be just on rock radio. They should be on top 20 because they are one of the best at what they do.
definitely. They are very, very solid. Um, but yeah. So sorry, I'm just looking at my notes. I'm so happy I don't do these live anymore. I did these live, right? So I
Oh
did
God.
like 5 episodes live. Oh my god. I thought it was gonna be the greatest idea because I was gonna get, fan interaction and this and that, and I can't even tell you how many times where I'm like, and
Yeah, right.
I was just
It's
like,
so much work.
yeah. So I like doing this where it can all be edited and
Yeah,
very,
you can
very
clean it
nice.
up and all that. I totally agree with you.
Definitely. Oh, so you know, you're obviously, if you said Laconia, you're New Hampshire based. Have you shot a lot of shows in Massachusetts at all?
Yeah, so I am sometimes the house photographer for a few venues, such as the DCU in Worcester, Mass. And I sometimes will shoot for Manchester, what is it, SM, SNU, Southern New Hampshire University Arena, whatever.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, my primary is based out of Guilford, New Hampshire, Bank in New Hampshire. I am actually in Maine, so I'll shoot up in Maine too. But the DCU is probably my most common. I just talked to them earlier today about some upcoming shows I'm trying to get on, or if they need any house photographer stuff. So yeah, it depends. I'll travel wherever. I mean, I do. Sometimes bands will hire me directly to do whatever, if it's a tour, video, or photography. Some artists hire me directly just to do their editing for whatever it is. They have an album coming out. There's an artist that's working on an album who will have something, I don't know, maybe next year, that I'm working on his promo photos right now and stuff like that. So I'll shoot for whatever venue, depending on what's going on, availability, all that sort of stuff.
Awesome. Did you do a show that had Ghost and Volbeat?
I was already booked that night, so I wanted that show so bad. I want to say that was a Shinedown night, actually. And you can't miss a Shinedown show, but I wanted that show so bad, but it was a conflict of a show I was already working on. I can't remember what it was, but unfortunately not. That
One
was I heard it was a killer.
one of the coolest days of my life, honestly, because long story short, I called it my work weekend. I just did a show for Fit for an Autopsy, and I
Yep.
went home. Oh, well, not even home because I don't live in Mass. I live in Rhode Island. So I stayed at a friend's house, and I was working, and I did that show the next day. We load in, we do this, we do that. We build the castle and the I think it's a castle or like a church. It was super weird, but we built it.
Yep.
And I went back to my friend's house and I fell asleep. He woke me up. He's like, "Yo, man, we gotta head out for loadout soon. Like, let's go." So I'm half asleep, bro. I'm in PJs and stuff. I'm at loadout, and all of a sudden, everybody's getting off stage, and guitarists, everybody who's in those masks gets off. All of a sudden, you'll never fucking guess who walks right by me, looks at me, and says, "What's up?" and keeps on walking. Uh, it's Tobias, right?
Yep.
But yeah, it was absolutely insane. I was like, "Did he just say hi to me? Like, what?" It
Yeah,
was
sometimes I mean there are artists that are real, backstage are just so cool, and then there's other artists who just hide away depending on what they got going on. Yeah, those,
yeah.
those guys. That's one band that's on my bucket list. Is that band? And recently, Rammstein just came through. I wanted that show, but I was already booked another night, the same night. I really wanted to get that show, but I gotta do what my schedule tells me first before I can jump in some of the other ones. But yeah, they're a bucket list band. That definitely.
Definitely, 100%. Yeah, when that Ramstein show came, I had some friends go, and they were like, "If you miss this, like, you just miss one of the best shows ever." And I was just
Right.
like, I should have went that night. I should have went.
I wanted it so bad. I was already booked. Unfortunately, I couldn't. I'm not gonna just say no to something I've already said yes to. But that is such a high priority show for me on my bucket list.
Definitely. I mean, it just says a lot about your character too. If you make a promise, even if it's Ramstein, like their live show is insane, and you were like, "No, I'm keeping my word." Like that just says a lot about you, you know.
Yeah, it could be that that Chris Stapleton I was just complaining about, and Ramstein the same night. I'm like, I gotta commit. I honor my commitment absolutely. I'll never back away from a commitment.
That's awesome, man. I love that. So, you know, could you kind of take me back a little bit and tell me, I mean, how did you get into concert photography?
Sure. Yeah. So, I mean, we probably have a similar sort of, and I think a lot of photographers I've talked to have a similar path where you start as a musician and then you work your way out of music into another creative field, whether it be photography or whatever it is. So that's sort of my path. I've been a musician forever. And I used to sing in a Def Leppard tribute band back in the day.
Hmm.
We did some touring up and down the East Coast, stuff like that. And then I had kids, and that sort of changed my priorities. And that sort of when I started getting involved with camera work is when I had kids, because you take pictures of your kids, all
Yeah,
that sort of stuff. So that was sort of the start of it. Was I would just take videos and photos of my family, as my daughters being born and so on and so forth. I would make home movies and all that sort of stuff. That sort of got me into the editing and the sort of idea of how the camera works and all that stuff. But my primary passion has always been music. So I have my band Acoustified, and we would go out, we'd play shows and do all this stuff, and then we'd start playing shows with some cool bands. And I'm already there, so why can't I just sneak my my camera in my guitar case while I'm there, and just maybe sneak a few shots here and there. That's sort of how it started. Just having that sort of, I'm opening for bands that are really cool. I already know how to use my camera. I can just bring my camera in with me, and I'll ask permission, make sure it's cool before I just whip things out and start doing things. And that's exactly what happened. And one of the key bands for me that was pivotal, there's two bands that are really pivotal for me getting into concert photography. Number one was Pop Evil, because we used to go see those all the time. We used to go see the Pop Evil all the time. And then my band and another band was the opening band for several shows. So I would already have access, and I would talk to the tour manager at the time. I think at the time was Jeff. Shelby's the current tour manager,
Hmm.
and he'd be like, "Yeah, sure. Here's a pass. You can shoot first three songs, whatever. And these are the rules." I was like, "Cool." So that sort of gave me that key. And then the second key band that really got me the job was Shinedown, because way back when Shinedown was touring a couple albums ago, whatever it was, I would go see all the Shine. You don't miss a Shinedown. So I would go to the Shinedown show, and I would just bring a little point and shoot camera with me, that was allowed, and because you can't have detachable lens, you can't have fancy cameras if you're not approved and all that stuff as a concert goer. So I just have a little point and shoot, and I would just shoot those, and I got some really nice Shinedown shots, and the venue commented how cool my shots were. And I said, well, hey, if you guys like these, I'm happy to do house photography for you. And that's sort of was the got me in with that Live Nation venue, and that sort of kicked everything else off. And then from there, I just started getting in contact with all the artists and management and stuff like that. And then I just started being involved directly with artists and stuff like that. So it was just a matter of taking that creative passion for music, applying that to the camera while I already had access to things, and
Hmm.
it just sort of, went off from there basically.
Hell yeah, I love it. Couple of points in there is again another mutual friend we have, Tom Reardon, the guitar
Yep.
tech for every band ever, but he's known for Pop Evil. That man, he will tell you that man has known me since I was this tall. Like, um, love that guy. Absolutely love that man. And guys, if you're watching this episode right now, I want you to quit out and go watch Tales from the Pit with his episode with Tom Reardon right now.
Yep.
Go
Part
watch
one and
that.
part two. Yep. Yep. Thank
Go
you.
go watch that and come back.
I was just talking to Tom earlier today. He's gonna be coming back around with Ginger and POD next month, I think. So I'm working on trying to see if we can hang out for a little bit. But Tom's awesome. Tom's the man. Guitar Tech Tom is his call on pretty much all the social medias, and he just knows everything. He's like so valuable. I've talked to several people. I think he's out with In This Moment right now,
Mm.
and Tom and Brian Hardiswick I've had on as well, and Justin Press was their security at one time as well. But he's one of those top guys in that group when it comes to guitar tech. Tom's your guy. He's also got his little band that he does. I don't say it little, but he's got his band he does for several shows here and there that I think they're coming up this way and New Year's that I'll go check out as well. But Tom's the man. Definitely Guitar Tech Tom. Go check him out.
Squelch, right? I think that's the name.
Yeah, Squelch. Yes. Yep.
Squelch.
Yep.
Yeah, man. Yeah, I agree with him. Please check out Tom. Tom is awesome. He's a
He's the
sweetheart, and I
man.
love that man.
Yep. And I always message him every time I'm having like guitar issues or questions. He's my go-to guy. If I want to replace this or if I want to get this, what would you do? This type of thing. Tom's the man when it comes to all that stuff.
Oh, he probably thinks I'm so annoying now. Because after I started my podcast, I keep hitting him up. I'm like, "Can you get me this person? Can you help me get this
Right.
person?" I'm so sorry to ask you, but can you? And he'll be like, I'll try."
Yep.
But
He knows everybody too. He's
oh,
deep in it.
definitely,
He's been with everyone. He's been all around. He's the man.
definitely. Yeah, it was funny, yeah, because I had John on my podcast, and Tom was like, "How do you know John?" And I'm like, "How do you know John?" And then I forget. I'm like, "Pop Evil, Shine Down." That makes sense.
Yep. Yep.
But
Definitely. Yeah. John's awesome too. I can't. John is. I don't know if well, you said you did, but I don't know how much you've talked with John outside of podcast.
mhm.
John is the craziest, most funniest dude there is in the industry when it comes to all of the backstage people involved with the touring and security and all that stuff when it comes to touring. John is the funniest dude around. He cracks me up every single time. They 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 got me pretty good on this last show.
Hmm.
So as I was mentioning earlier, they all went fishing the day before the show when they played New Hampshire about a month or two ago. And I was talking to John. I was like, "Cool, I'll be working the venue. I'm going to do video and photography for the venue for promo stuff and stuff like that." And they're like, "Fine, we'll figure all that out on the day of." So I'm like, "Cool." So I roll up in on that day, ready to go. I get all my gear, and it's me and a bunch of the other photographers, and John's there, and everybody else is there, and I'm like, all these guys are there, and they're like, "Oh, cool, we're gonna go shoot backstage and stuff like that." I'm like, "Cool, all right, cool." And then they go, the marketing team comes to me and says, "You're only allowed to shoot the first three songs because you're working for the venue. Everyone else has to, everyone else can do whatever they want because they're not working, but you are working, so you can only shoot the first three songs, and they got to be from front of house, which is the soundboard." And I'm like, "What?"
Yeah,
I'm
that's
like, I was like, "Wait a minute." Every time I work with John, John's a good friend. We get sort of a little bit of a special treatment, if you will. Not always, but sometimes we get a little bit of an extra special treatment. Maybe we can shoot an extra song, or maybe we can get in the pit. Sometimes, depending on what's going on, every once in a while, we may get a special, side stage access, depending on what it is. And that also depends on, pyro and all that stuff. If
mhm.
there's dangerous, obviously not going to happen. But anyway, so everyone else got backstage access. I had to shoot first three only from the pit, from the front of house by the soundboard, which is way back. So I'm like, this is gonna suck. Everyone
Yeah.
else is gonna get great stuff, and I'm gonna get lame stuff from way back here. So I was so bummed and disappointed, and everyone was like, "Well, sorry, sucks to be you." And everyone else is all backstage showing off their passes to me and all these shots they got. I'm like, "Damn, this sucks." And this is all while Jelly Roll's playing,
Yep.
and I'm like, "This is such a bummer." And then I'm talking to John, like, "Hey, dude, what's happening?" We're like hanging out, and he's like, "So how's it going?" I'm like, "Well, I'm bummed tonight, man. I guess I must have pissed you guys off or something like that." I go, "Because I only can shoot from front of house. Everyone else is shooting whatever, or whatever their specifications were." I was like, "Dude, this sucks, man." He goes, "Yeah, it's a bummer. What are you gonna do?" I'm like, "Well, I'm happy to get what I get. It is what it is. I'll just move forward and do that." He goes, "Dude, we're fucking with you." And I go, "What?" He goes, "I got everybody, including the marketing team at your venue, everybody's in on this. Everyone is fucking with you right now." I'm like, "Are you fucking kidding me?" He goes, "Go right now, go to your marketing team. They have all your passes, they have everything. Everybody, I got the whole freaking crew, everybody at the venue to fuck with you." I'm like, "God damn it, man." I was like, "You broke my heart." I was like, "I'm so upset. You broke my heart." He's like, "If we're just fucking with you, man." I was like, "Ah, damn." So yeah, so you may have seen.
Oh
Um,
man.
I posted something online, some shots of the show, or Amiris. I was responding to Sanjay. Sanjay's the photographer, videographer for the band, and
Hmm.
Sanjay is one of the best there is in the biz.
Hmm.
I think he made a comment, or somebody made a comment about something, and you'll see my comments every now and it says, "Hey, great show. Don't trust John." I'll just I'll just make these random posts, and he just likes my post every so often. So I was like, "God, you fucking got me good, man. You got me real good."
He
So,
when he brought me in for that show at Mohegan, I it was me and my brother, and he came out and he gave us our passes, and he had to go off and he had to do his thing 'cause he had a job to do,
yep.
and again that was my first time being backstage, so I'm backstage, and I will never forget this. I walk up, me and my brother walk up, and we get behind the curtain, and this lady sitting at the door, and she goes, yeah. And I go, oh, well, we're here for Shinedown. She's like, oh, you're here to meet Shinedown? I go, no, we have passes, like, we're here to, like, watch them. And she goes, oh, okay. And John just walks by, and under his breath, he's like, fucking newbie. And he just keeps walking.
John he's the most hilarious dude there is in the business. He's so fun to be around.
Oh, yeah. No, he's fucking hilarious. He had a picture with, I think it was the drummer or the vocalist from Ashes to New. And they're both in their boxers on top of a piano. I fucking cried at that picture. That was so hilarious.
not afraid. So for people watching, every once in a while, John used to get on during COVID. Anyways, I don't think he does it anymore.
Yeah.
He would get on Instagram and do an Instagram live like on a Friday night, and he would just get hammered, and he would just start singing classic rock songs at the top of his lungs, all out of key. I'm all out of love or whatever he's saying. And all these people would just join in on his Instagram post, his live feed, and just enjoy the show. He's so freaking hilarious.
I love it. I love it. Oh wow. Looking at the time, I don't think we're gonna.
Yeah.
Gotcha. Actually, yeah. If we could kind of go through them a little bit. So at the end of my podcast, I ask my guests 3 questions. It's kind of a
Sure.
staple. It was a staple of my last one, and I'm bringing it to this one because I love it. They range from easiest to hardest, and right now I'm 1 for 2. So
Okay.
I wasn't able to stump Kyle. Right? Was it Kyle? But I was able to stump Christian from. Do you know the band Currents?
Uh, no, I don't
They're
think so.
they're kind of a newer metalcore band, but yes, you were the third guest, and I'm gonna see if I can stump you and get a lead. So for the first question, always the easiest, is can you name 5 underrated bands that need more love?
Well, we already talked to Seven Dust, definitely.
Definitely.
I mean, they're definitely underrated. I will say that it's hard to say because things are changing a lot for bands this year. A lot of bands are really picking up momentum.
Hmm.
I mean, I would have said Falling in Reverse in that list, but they are getting so much love this year.
Definitely.
So I don't know if that would count. Ginger,
Hmm.
they're a new band. They're really cool. I think it's really cool to see what they're doing. I'll definitely put Plush on there, which is a brand new band. A lot of these will probably be new bands. Put Plush on there because they're really killing it. A band that needs more love. I want to go with someone who's been out around that I think should be bigger. Um, I'll say Bad Wolves. I mean, they had a big hit, but I really think that they are better than what I think they're better than their. I think they should be bigger than what they are. Bad Wolves is just they got such good songwriting. Um, let's see, another band I think should be bigger than what they are. I mean, there's so many good new bands coming out. And I'm just spacing out on when you put me on the spot. Let's see here. Who should be bigger? I mean, there's so many bands blowing up right now too. I'm gonna say The Warning. I don't know
Hmm.
if you know who The Warning is. It's a
Sounds familiar.
bunch of sisters. Again, another brand new band. A bunch of sisters that I photographed earlier this year. That I was just like, holy cow! They're just a bunch of young sisters. I think they're like out of South America or something like that. And they were freaking killer. They have a killer version of Enter Sandman by Metallica, and it's just a 3 piece. It's just 3 sisters, and they all sing, they all play, and they sound freaking good. So I'll go with The Warning.
They do that cover of Holy Diver, right? They all wear like leather jackets.
That's a good question. I don't know the answer on that one. Maybe,
Gotcha. I think it's them.
maybe,
I'll look it up after this. I think I know who you're talking about. All
maybe.
right. So that question didn't stump you. So the third one is where I count it. So the second question is Acoustified is going on tour. You have to have 2 headliners and 3 openers, counting yourself. So there's 5 bands counting yourself. So you pick 4 other bands that it would be your dream tour.
Well, definitely gonna say Papa Roach in there because there is no band that is freaking as energetic as those dudes. Other than that, other than Shinedown, so I would say Papa Roach and Shinedown, which that would be a monster show. Just those 2 bands right there is a monster show.
Oh yeah.
Uh, Obviously, we'll be the very opening band. What else would we? Would you say what were the options? Or would you say the specifications were?
So you got two
Just
headliners. You need 2 more openers because you're also an
2 openers.
opener.
Yeah. Who else would I like to be on that band, on that show, on that tour? Um, I don't know if I would consider um, uh, Hailstorm an opener,
Hmm.
but I would like them to be on that tour. And then, um, who else? There's so many good bands out right now. There's so many cool bands. Maybe, shoot, I don't know. I mean, geez, I don't know. it's I'm gonna say Bad Wolves, but that was already, Bad Wolves and Papa Roach was already a tour going on. But
Yeah.
who am I listening to right now? Well, they're not really touring anymore, but 6 a.m. is one of my favorite bands.
Mm.
I would say they would be a great opener, but I don't know if they would be considered an opener. But I would definitely like to see 6 a.m. on the tour. Um, I don't know. I'll just go with that, I guess.
Gotcha. I
All
mean,
no, no, no. Sorry. All good things. Definitely all good things. My buddy Dan Murphy from All Good Things.
all
Those
good
guys
things.
and that also goes for your previous question about bands that should be bigger. All good things.
All good
I don't know
things.
why. I don't know why you spaced those guys. Those guys are awesome.
I'm gonna check those guys out right after the podcast.
Definitely,
All good things.
definitely.
Gotcha.
See if you can get Dan on your podcast. He's awesome.
All right, I'll definitely look into it. I love recommendations because, if I get somebody who like I like you, man, I'm gonna get
Sure.
somebody who
Thanks.
you recommend.
Yeah.
Um,
Thanks.
what was I gonna say? Oh, last question. Here's the
Yep.
one that should stump you. I hope it does. Is Acoustified breaks up? You're on your own, and you need to get band members from other bands to fill in the spots that you just lost. Who would those people be and why?
So this one's kind of easy because, well, I can't say why, but this one's kind of easy. I would say on guitar, I would definitely get Jason Hook, my buddy Jason Hook on the guitar. On drums, I would get what the hell's his name? From Papa Roach, the drummer from Papa Roach. Tony, is it Tony?
I think so. The guy
Uh,
with the curly hair.
yeah.
Yeah.
He would be my drummer. Jason Hook would be my guitar player. My bass player would be Matt Dorito from Pop Evil, or formerly of Pop Evil, and the singer would be Dan from All Good Things.
Solid lineup. Damn. All right. I am.
So let me give you a little inside information that's not public knowledge on why I chose those people.
Gotcha.
Three of those people. So I do occasionally work with Jason Hook. I do a lot of his promo photo stuff. Jason Hook, former guitar player of Five Finger Death Punch.
Mm-hmm.
And he's got some stuff coming out. Those were all musicians I suggested he talk to for building his band. And I believe he had talked to all those musicians. So I don't know if they were potential. I'm not going to say they are.
Yeah.
I'm just going to say they were my suggestion for what I thought a killer, all-star band would be. So those were my suggestions to him when we talked about his future band, which he'll announce when he's ready to. But those were my suggestions to him. So I was hoping someday we would see that band in reality. I don't think that's the case, but I was definitely pushing for it.
That'd be so insane.
Yeah.
But yeah, that's the tail end, man. I just really, really want to thank you for coming on. This has been a pleasure. It does not feel like it's almost been an hour.
Yeah. Being a podcast host who is now a guest is it's very bizarre because it seems like we're just kind of hanging out talking about stuff we both relate to.
Yeah.
so it doesn't feel like a podcast. It just feels like two guys talking about our podcast stuff.
Definitely, 100%. I mean, that's the kind of atmosphere I want to go for. I really just want to promote unity and community within. I just want to get people on, and I don't want it to feel like a business thing. I want it to feel like we're just shooting the shit. Just having a good time.
Yeah.
And
I think it's great, dude.
awesome. I really do appreciate it. And yeah, I will 100% have you back on. Everybody, please go check out his band, his photography, his podcast. This band is very talented, and I just really want to thank you for coming on. Thank you, sir.
Well, thank you very much. I appreciate it. And Acoustified Media is my concert photography if you want to check it out. Thank you, dude. This is awesome. Thank you so much.
Thank you.